Hello there, cat people. Dan the Catman here, and welcome to the Yogi Show, episode 21 of the Shelter Cats podcast. The labor of feline love. The Shelter Cats podcast is all about shelter cats. The shelter cats that have lived with me, made a big difference in my life, and in many cases have saved my life, and hopefully will inspire you to adopt a shelter cat of your own. Or if you have one, another, maybe your third, if you have the space. Adopt, don't shop. That's the motto. Adopt, don't shop. You hear that all the time. Adopt, don't shop. Adopt, don't shop. What does that mean? That means don't buy a fancy schmancy kitten or a cat from breeder. Go to your shelter and adopt one. Because right now, as I'm speaking to you in my Brooklyn accent, and don't make fun of me, right now, there is an amazing shelter cat sitting in a shelter, at a rescue, in a foster home, right now, dreaming of coming home with you and being your amazing shelter cat. It's just like my Tyler, all the cats in my life, like my Taylor, everybody, you can have one of those too. And they make such a difference because there is no love in this world like an unconditional love that you get from a shelter cat. So, I'm recording this opening. I actually had an opening recorded for this episode, but I'm recording it again right after I recorded the actual full interview. It's just such an amazing interview. I'm so excited for this guest, and actually husband and wife guest, and they own Yogi the cat. So I'll get to that in a minute. But I want to hear from you too. I'm hearing from so many people, from people who own cats, people who do cat rescue, people who run shelters from New York City to Long Island to Philadelphia to Utah. All sorts of people that have amazing stories, from the cats they've owned to just what they do in helping the homeless cat population and finding homes for cats. So I want to hear from you too. So, how do you find me? Well, I'll tell you. I'm on the web, tylerthecat.com. My email is dan@tylerthecat.com. I'm on Facebook. The page is called Shelter Cats. And I do a lot of posts of my cats, and Taylor's Rescue, Alley Cats posts a lot of posts of cats they have for adoption and fundraising they need, and homes they need to find for cats, even foster homes. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. Just search Shelter Cats Podcast. I'm on Twitter, 2 places. My own Twitter is Dan Tract. My official Shelter Cats Twitter is Shelter Cats POD, Shelter Cats Pod. Medium, I do a Medium blog every Saturday, so you could become a Medium member at sheltercats.medium.com, or just search Shelter Cats on medium.com. Medium is great if you like to read blogs, all sorts of topics, from cats to technology to anything you can think of. There's somebody blogging about it on Medium. It's a wonderful, wonderful website. And they did not sponsor this show, but hey, if they're listening, feel free. And I have a YouTube, also Shelter Cats, but I'm not doing much with it yet because I don't know what I'm doing with video editing. Perhaps tonight's guest might be able to help me. Or if you would like to volunteer your services with video editing, feel free to reach out to me. And last but not least, you can support the podcast. My voice went up really high on Spotify and Patreon. You don't have to. I don't care if I make a penny off of this. It's all about finding cats' homes. But I'd love to get better equipment. I'd love to get better editing software, and I'd love to produce the best possible show to get the message out about everything involving shelter cats. So, on Spotify, look for the $sign and the little bank. Click it, donate whatever you want. Patreon, just search Shelter Cats, or I could always send you the link. And there are various levels on Patreon where you get access to my WhatsApp group, my Discord server, all that good stuff. And so that's it. That's how you find me. Don't be shy. I want to hear from you. Even if you don't want to be a future guest on the show, even if you just want to send me a picture and tell me the story of your cat, I would love to hear from you. With all that preambled, tonight I have Robert and Kitty Radler, who own this amazing, turned out to be Maine Coon cat named Yogi. Yogi the cat, not Yogi the bear. So Robert Radler has had a lifetime career in Hollywood. He's directed films. He does editing. He's directed all sorts of good things. And they've had cats their whole lives. They've had the benefit of living in California on a lot of property that's fenced in, so they could safely have their cat go outside and come back. So their cat has the benefit of a safe outdoor environment and a wonderful home environment. And they've had some amazing cats throughout their lives. And Robert's wife is named Kitty. How could I not have somebody who actually has the name Kitty on a podcast about cats? How could I not have her on the show? I mean, could it be any more perfectly set up? And they have the most amusing cat ever named Yogi, who is kind of latte colored, and he turned out to be a Maine Coon. He's got the world's bushiest, biggest tail ever on a cat, and he's a budding YouTube star. He's taken his experience in filmmaking and he's put it all to use, making Yogi a YouTube channel called The Yogi Show. So do follow it on YouTube. I'll be sharing YouTube links all over the place. So just go to YouTube and look for The Yogi Show and you'll find it. So here, without further ado, are Robert and Kitty Radler. And you'll hear Yogi meowing in the background at times through the interview. Our awesome conversation all about cats, a little left turn to ocean liners, and about Yogi the cat. Enjoy.
Here.
Hello.
Hi there.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much.
Good to be on the show.
How are you?
Good. You're here with me and with Kitty Radler.
Hello, and where's Yogi?
Yogi is right over there wanting to go outside.
I'm sorry, you just said the two of you, and I go, where's Yogi? But anyway, welcome to the show. Thank you so much. You're the first Hollywood anything I've had on my little podcast, so I'm ever so slightly nervous. And
we live 40 miles from Hollywood, so that's significant.
How's the weather? I don't know why I'm asking that, but how is the weather?
It's fine. It's like low 80s and sunny. It's all right.
Better than New York, where I am. So
it's supposed to be.
Well, sorry, excuse us in humid New York. But so my little Shelter Cats podcast, the point is, when I started it, it's all about just how everyday adopt, don't shop cats can make a big difference in people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had everybody from just people who have had amazing cats to people who run shelters in New York City. But this is the first time not only somebody who's actually been a director, but also whose cat Yogi is a budding YouTube star. So I definitely wanted to have you on. To start, can you introduce yourselves and maybe talk a little bit about how your history with cats, for lack of a better term?
Sure. In fact, I will let Kitty start because she's had more cats than I have, unless you'd rather I started. She'd rather I started.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't be shy.
When I was a kid, I had a cat named Reddy, who was kind of Angora, and she would follow me out to the bus stop every day and in grammar school, and then walk back alone. And that's when I realized that cats could be, friendlier and more important in your life than most people think cats can be. But much later in life, when I moved to Los Angeles, and I start going out with my now wife, Kitty, believe it or not, we got a cat. couldn't get a dog with a wife named Kitty, so we got a cat. And its name was Spats. And Spats was a lady cat and was with us for 18 years. She moved with us from Santa Monica to North Hollywood, and then out here to Thousand Oaks, where we live now.
She was a tuxedo cat.
Yes, a tuxedo cat with extra claws, right?
Polydactyl.
Oh, nice.
And she was just a very laid-back, sweet cat. And after 18 years, she went to the big sandbox in the sky. And we waited a little while and decided it was time for another one. And by then, we had a little boy named Ben.
Oh.
And Ben had it in his head that he wanted a red cat. So we went to a shelter place where they had, oh my God, it was a backyard in the San Fernando Valley. I think they had one of every kind of animal. It was something like Noah's Ark. But there was one family of cats that we were particularly enthused about. And Ben found that red cat that later became Skittles, our cat for the next 15 and a half years. That one was a boy, a red boy, and short hair. It was between that and a tabby version, his brother. But when I picked up the tabby version that I was kind of fond of, it pooped on me, so we went with Skittles, the red cat, as you might imagine. And we knew that Skittles was going to be a great cat on the way home, because on the ride home, instead of freaking out and running away and being scared, it just kind of sat on our laps, and we drove home with it. And Skittles was the sweetest cat ever. He was just a honey. He liked all kinds of people. He was friendly with everyone. Anything else on Skittles?
Unless you were a rabbit.
Okay. What? Tell me more.
Oh, he was a hunter. Skittles liked to hunt. And he would hunt and bring home all kinds of things.
Presents.
Yes.
Presents.
Or dinner. I mean, one day I was dishing out his food, and I put the food down, and he looked at it, and he looked at me, and he looked at the food. And I said, if you don't like it, go get your own. And let him out. And about 15 minutes later, there he was with a dead mouse.
So he took you at your word.
Fast food.
So where you are, there's obviously a lot of land, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a place that's, I know there's a lot of discussion and argument about cats being only indoor or indoor and outdoor. We live in a place where there is a lot of land, and it's fenced in quite well. And so we're nervous about letting the cat out, but our current cat, Yogi, there was nothing to talk about. He was going out, and that's all there was to it. If we didn't let him out, he would have driven us out. So he's mostly indoors, but he goes out, but he doesn't go very far. And there's a tracker, so we always know where he is. And mostly he just lives under the deck.
Okay, so he gets some fresh air, but not too far. That's pretty. If it's fenced in and safe, being able to experience the outdoors is beneficial.
Yeah, and they get their exercise and so on. I mean, it isn't that it doesn't make us a little nervous, because who knows what might come by. But hey, our first one lasted 18 years, and our second one almost 16. So we have a pretty good track record around here.
That's amazing. And Kitty, I must say you have a perfect name for my podcast. So thank you very much for being named. It's a show about cats, and I'm interviewing someone named Kitty. I mean, this could not be set up any better.
There you go. I've been Kitty for a really long time.
Meow.
That's wonderful. Just it's perfect. That should be your ringtone, just meowing.
Right.
So Yogi is freaking adorable. Tell me how you got Yogi. Did he have the name Yogi? Did you name
Yes.
him Yogi? What is the story of Yogi?
Okay. After many years after Skittles passed, we felt we were ready for
5 years.
5 years after Skittles passed. We felt we were ready for another cat. We gave ourselves a little vacation in the middle.
Right.
So we began a search and looking at shelters, no pet stores, just shelters all over the place in Southern California. And uh, it wasn't a good time. There weren't a lot of kittens out there, you
It's
know.
November of 2019,
Uh-huh.
Thanksgiving week.
Yeah.
Not before Thanksgiving.
It was a Thanksgiving present, Yogi was. I think he was a present anyway. And we looked and looked. We went to one place where we were looking for another male red or orange cat because we loved Skittles so much, and he was so smart and so good and so friendly. So we were looking for the same kind of thing. Found one at a adoption place. As soon as I walked in the room, he climbed up on his scratching post and just wanted to be near me and followed me around the room. And then I fell in love with him, and they told me he was already spoken for. So that didn't work. And we looked and looked, and we went to shelters and all the towns around here, way out to Oxnard. I mean, we really looked, and nothing really rang our bell until I was told that PetSmart on the weekends had an adoption clinic and for dogs and cats. So while Kitty was out getting her hair cut, I went to the PetSmart on I think a Sunday or Saturday, and I saw some cats, and I saw three brothers who were named after the Yogi Bear characters: Yogi, Ranger Smith, and Boo Boo.
Ranger Smith.
Well, that was his name.
Ranger is what they were calling him. But when I asked about it, I said, "Oh no, it's Yogi, Boo Boo, and Ranger Smith." But of course it is.
Hanna-Barbera fans. I love it.
Somewhere.
Right. And I'm sitting there alone, and I'm playing with the red male, which is what we were looking for, and he's nice enough. But on the top of the cages where the cats were kept, there was another cat, and that turned out to be Yogi, and he was going 90 miles an hour back and forth. It's in the video, actually, the first video. It sounded like thunder as he was pounding the top of the cages.
That's my favorite one.
Yeah. And then he was going from cage to cage and, enticing the other cats. Some of them were full grown, to whack at him as he was whacking at them. He had no fear. He was king of the hill. And he was just a little guy. And he was just slightly furrier than his other two brothers, which we hardly noticed at all. But the adoption fellow said to me, "Look at that one up there," as I'm playing with the redder one. "That one's a little lion." And I took one look at Yogi, and he looked back at me, and he just started performing. And all of a sudden, I didn't care about the other cat. I put that one away, and I started hanging out with Yogi. And I can't say Yogi was super attuned to me as a human, but man, what a show. So he was whacking stuff. He was hanging by stuff. He was jumping from cage to the cat tree and back. And he was just, he was the life of the party. So I fell in love with him completely. And I got in my car and I said, please don't, right before I got in my car, a woman came in who wanted to adopt Yogi. So, So I jumped in the car and I drove to where Kitty was having her hair cut. And she's in the chair getting her hair cut. And I'm going, Kitty, you got to see this cat. Come with me. And she's looking at me like I'm crazy. But
again, perfect name, but go on.
Yeah, right. Well, so I ran back there with her after her haircut. And I looked in the cage and Yogi was gone. And my heart just fell because I was deeply in love. He was so cute. But as it turned out, he was either in another cage or way back in that cage, because when we got in the room, there he was.
Oh,
And now I'll turn it over to Kitty, because she got to meet him at that point too, and I think she pretty much agreed with my opinion.
Yes, the personality was all there, and he's cute as hell. So we decided, okay, we'll go for this one, and we made a deal with the pet people. We couldn't take him home that day. We had to come back the next day, and got everything, dug out the old things, dug out the carrier, got everything organized, got everything ready, and went back the next day and retrieved him.
Yeah, and he was a little shy at first at the house, but eventually came out from behind the bookcase and under the recliner and start playing with us. And here's what we didn't know. We didn't know that Yogi was at least part Maine Coon. There was no way to really tell, other than the fact that his tail was, 18% furrier than his two brothers. And I guess it's possible within one litter for one cat to be, sired by a Maine Coon and another by something else. But
the other two, Ranger and Boo Boo, were what you might call base models.
Okay. Base model.
Yeah, no power steering.
Not a lot of extras on them. Cute, basic, your basic model cat. But
he was the Brome model, or whatever you'd call it.
Yeah. All right. He had the go package.
Yeah, if he was flying around on top of all the cages, and
he did, and he
stole
is
the show.
Beautiful blonde color. They either call it buff or latte sometimes. And within a few weeks, his fur started popping out, and his tail became, 8 times the size that it was when I adopted him.
I hear him in the background, by the way.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's him.
He's cruising around.
If you hear something that sounds human, that's him being pissed off.
It got to the point with his tail, and in particular, the fur all over, but in the tail, we would walk into the room and he'd be standing there looking at you, and it'd be like, look at that tail. Where did that come from? They wanted a short hair, really, so the maintenance would be easier, and you couldn't tell when we brought him home, but the fur popped out. He got a ruff around his neck, an extra ruff, and look at that tail.
And he'd learned that the word tail means his tail. So if you say, hey, Yogi, is that your tail? He'll wag that tail. He'll whack his mousy rat with it. Now you can say, Yogi, show us twitchy tail, and he'll twitch his tail.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
A lot of words. But the funny thing is, we began to see early on that this was not a regular cat. And as a matter of fact, we're pretty sure it's a dog in a cat suit, because immediately he was fetching. We throw a ball, he'd go grab, he'd run and get it and bring it back.
That's unusual. That's unusual.
Yeah. Plus, he really liked water. Plus, he was incredibly verbal. I mean, there are times he will talk all afternoon, and if you don't do what he wants, we're his concierges here. He pretty much runs the place.
Yeah, and in Yogi's opinion, the concierge service here is seriously lacking. Not up to his standards by any means.
No. So he's very particular, and he keeps us jumping. And he knows a lot of words, as I said. So we can say, you want a cheese stick, Yogi? Jump up on your cathedral, or his cat tree, and boom, he's up there and waiting. Also, he's not food motivated, so we can't train him really with food. We really have to do it in other ways. And he only likes food from Gelson's Gourmet Market. I know you don't have that back east.
No. What is that?
Well, it's a place where everything you buy is twice as expensive as anywhere else. So it's almost like he can tell what was bought at Gelson's and what was bought at Vaughn's.
Fresh fresh sliced turkey breast, right?
That's what he likes.
That's the favorite thing. And if it comes from, the basic grocery store, I swear to God, he knows the difference.
My first cat had to have boar's head sliced thin ham. If it was the store brand, he'd look at me like, I know this is the store brand. I'm not eating this.
Exactly.
That's it.
I swear, I don't know how they know, but they do.
I'd end up eating the store brand, and I'd save the boar's head for him. And
That's right.
My friends would look at me like, are you really doing that? Yes. He'd demand, and if it wasn't sliced thin, like my Jewish grandmother in Brooklyn, if it wasn't sliced thin, he'd look at me like, try again, dumbass. I'm not eating this.
He may be your Jewish grandmother.
Reincarnated. So that really strikes a chord that it had to be from the fancy place, because I lived with, that was my first cat.
That's why we eat the cat food and he eats the deli meat.
It's on a bagel in a pinch. It's not bad.
Not bad. Some people like lox,
Yeah, it tastes similar. If you have like the salmon pate.
So you've tried it.
Yeah, sometimes when you're on a low budget, my cats look at me like, you really need help. But
right. Anyway, what we found out a lot of stuff about Maine Coons and how high maintenance they are, but he gives back an awful lot. I also found out that Consumer Reports, when they test vacuum cleaners, used Maine Coon fur to determine how good the vacuum cleaner is, because it's the hardest thing to vacuum.
Wow.
So
I can
we
believe
can
that.
attest to that.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Like every time we empty the vacuum cleaner, there's almost like another cat in there. And we could certainly be purses from what flies off of him.
Hey, it might be an Etsy idea.
Yeah. Oh, Kitty, take care.
He's like, ding ding, not a bad idea.
Anyway,
is he a cuddly cat? Is he like a lap cat?
Yes and no. Maine Coons don't like being picked up. In the winter, he'll sit on my lap on my recliner and watch TV with us for hours. In the summer, he's not so interested in the lap because of his, thick coat and all of that.
Right.
But he's always with us. So when we go from one room to another, he's there. When I'm working on my computer editing, he's right to my side where, his tail is where the mouse is supposed to be. So I reach down for my mouse and I get a handful of tail. He's always with me, but he doesn't like being picked up. So if I pick him up, like from the table when he's right here, he'll jump down, but then he'll come right back. It's
interesting.
He's really weird that way, but he's super affectionate and he has a very loud purr and he loves being petted.
He's a petting whore.
So everything on his terms, including the affection.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Typical Maine Coon, it sounds like.
Yeah, we're hired help. No question about it.
So I'm taking a left turn into what you do. Obviously, that has played a part in the Yogi Show, the Yogi channel. What can we get the short version? Like, I know you've directed. This is not about the SS United States as much as I'd like it to be. So I know, Lady in Waiting. In the late '90s, I once ordered a pizza to it, and I had Boston Market aboard myself.
Oh,
when what's his name in New Jersey owned it? I forget his name. Cantor, yeah. He used to let me. He liked that I was a Jewish kid from Brooklyn, so he'd let me go on. Oh, go, it's fine. You just don't hurt yourself, and he'd let me go on. And
oh, wow.
one time I ordered a pizza. No, yeah, that ship over there, they'll let you in. I'll meet you at, and the guy was scared out of his mind. Yeah, I'll take it. I'm going back on. Thank you. But
yeah, I've been a filmmaker for like 49 years now. I started rather young, and now I'm rather old. But the SS United States is, the iconic American ocean liner was our national flagship. in the 50s and 60s, as many know, many don't. I saw it when I was a little kid, maybe 6 years old. My dad took me to the luxury liner row in New York, and I saw the Queen Mary in the United States, and I think the Ile de France, and I fell in love with the United States. So when I got older and I moved back to New York to go to grad school for filmmaking, I went looking for the thing, and I couldn't find it. And I started making calls. Where did this ship go? Is it still in service? Is it, out of service? Does it still exist? And there was no internet back then in like 1974. So it took calls to the United States lines and the Maritime Administration and all of that to locate it. It was in Norfolk, Virginia. And it took so long to get permission to film on it that I had literally given up on it. And one day they called me and said, "Hey, you still want to film on the ship? Because the BBC is coming down and you can get on next Tuesday." So I went down and I filmed on the SS United States in 1975 before everything on board was auctioned off.
Wow.
And some of that footage is in Lady in Waiting, the film we made many years later, I think 2008 or so, about the ship. And hopefully that film contributed to that ship still being there.
No, it's a great. I've seen it many, 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 many times. So yeah, I was 2 in 1975. So to in terms of the ship, we're taking a left turn into ocean liners. But what a time to be alive, to be able to film on it then, when everything was. They locked the doors. They sealed it tightly. Everything was, as my father would say, perfect.
Yeah, it was. Except everything on it. When I saw it, there was no electricity, so everything was dark, and everything looked kind of old. Now it's all mid-century modern. It would have been perfect. They'd just left it alone. But no, they had to sell everything that was on there, and but I got to see it in its real state with all its accoutrements and all its surfaces, and it was an unforgettable filming episode. And I've just followed that ship for my entire life now.
One day you and Yogi will be able to walk the decks, I hope.
Right, maybe.
That would be wonderful. But you obviously, that experience in filmmaking is now playing a part with Yogi. I'm tying it back to cats somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we do a lot of filming, and we do a lot of iPhone filming like everybody else does. But Yogi is so photogenic, as you'll see if you watch the Yogi Show on YouTube. He's so photogenic that we just can't help ourselves. And he's funny. We swear he has a sense of humor, too. And since we had so much footage, and these days I do more editing than anything else, which is by choice. I just like staying home, especially during COVID,
Right.
and just staying in my own house near my refrigerator and editing for a living. I kind of decided, with Kitty's help, to just start cutting some of this footage into something and telling the chronological story from the day we met Yogi to his exploits these days. He's got a boyfriend.
Tell me about that.
Well, there's another boy cat named White Sox. Well, actually, the cat, we found out the real cat's name. It's kind of a feral cat, except I think 2 different people think they own it. So he has like 2 homes besides visiting us almost every day. And White Sox is just your standard tabby gray cat. And he's like a wise cat. He's like the neighborhood bully, And
Haskell.
he's like Eddie Haskell and Leave It to Beaver, if I'm not dating myself.
No, I grew up on that show. I know who you're talking about.
Just always looking for trouble. And as soon as Yogi knows he's out there, he needs to go out. He begins this moaning thing. How does it go, Kitty? Until we let him out.
It's the White Sox call.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kitty doing cat noises.
Yeah, she knows some other ones too.
That's impressive.
Thank you.
Look by your door. White Sox might be there right now.
He could be. It's funny because Yogi really, wants him to come visit, and once he does, they sit there and look at each other, chew their feet, and every now and then they take a swat at each other. But we can't tell if they're friends or enemies, so we call them frenemies. And
I think it's a good thing.
yeah, no, it is. They're playing for sure. I would have a much higher vet bill. But episode 5 on the Yogi Show is Yogi and White Sox getting it together for the first few times. Episode 6, which I'm still editing, is Yogi beating the crap out of White Sox. So you'll look forward to that one. He deserves it.
Yogi gets a win.
Yeah, Yogi gets a win. White Sox took a whack at Kitty the other day. She was feeding him treats, and he took a swipe at her, made blood come.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we're not real thrilled with White Sox. Oh, what I was going to tell you is White Sox's real name is Steve McQueen.
Okay.
Seriously, we met the owners who happened to walk by the house, and they saw White Sox and Yogi chasing each other around the yard. And it was like, wait, that's our cat. What's he doing in your yard? Because our yards connect at the back. They're big pieces of property. So White Sox comes around from the backside. It's like, no, is that who he belongs to? And they said, well, we got him, and he was kind of semi-feral. So he has a cat door that's open. He comes and goes as he pleases. He's, his own cat. And his name is Steve McQueen. Right?
Sounds appropriate.
Well, the funny thing is we try calling it Steve or McQueen or Steve McQueen, and he doesn't even look up. We got another neighbor that feeds White Sox every day, too, who calls him Super Cat. Oh, the poor cat must have an identity crisis. I don't know. But he's Yogi's good friend.
He goes by on the Ring camera. We see him at, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. It's amazing a coyote hasn't gotten him. Because we have coyotes out here, we have skunks, we have some big-ass raccoons.
Yeah, and he's out all the time.
Yeah, Yogi comes in, as soon as it gets towards 5 o'clock, Yogi's in the house.
Do you have a cat door as well?
No. Yeah, I learned that lesson many years ago. I lived in Laurel Canyon for many years. And I had a cat door when I first moved into the first place I was at, until I was awakened one night by all kinds of banging and clanging. And my cats were on the bed with me going, what the fuck? And turned on the light in the kitchen, and there was a family of raccoons partying in there. And it was like,
that's great.
They did. The funny thing was, they just looked at me like, yeah.
Do you mind? Partying in your kitchen. I have raccoons, one of which I named Rocky, that I actually hand feed. So I wouldn't let them in the apartment, but
a wise decision.
But one shows up at the door and he has his paws out. May I have a piece of whatever you have spare by any chance? And he looks like he's begging, like he should have a little priest's outfit on. Like, kind sir, would you mind? And my cats are like, give him something. Jesus, come on. He's begging. But in the kitchen having a party, I think.
Oh yeah, there were like 4 of them, I think, as I recall.
My God.
A few years later, when I was living with a guy for a period of time, and he had 3 cats, and I had 3 cats. So we combined them, which didn't go all that well. But the same kind of scenario. All of a sudden at night, I'm hearing all this noise coming from the kitchen. I went out there and flipped on the light, and there were like 14 cats in the kitchen. They had invited friends over, and there was this frozen moment when the light went on where all the cats just like froze in place, and then they all tried, including mine, they all tried to get out the cat door at the same time.
Like, oh shit.
There was a 14 cat pile up.
That's, you see, I wish iPhones had existed back then. That
exactly. That was what I was thinking as it was happening. I was like, damn, I wish I had a camera. Because they were banging into each other and kissing and swatting and trying to dive out the cat door.
That's great.
They were all gone except my cats going. Yeah, we were having a fun time here. So
Thinking,
cat tours.
Yeah, not
okay,
where we live.
no, I still think it's great that you. It's just I'm on Long Island. That kind of life is just not possible for my crew.
Yeah.
That you have that ability to have a fenced in, that Steve McQueen or Charles Bronson, whatever his name is, can come and go, and John Wayne. That they any other movie stars coming around that they could kind of come and go, and with Steve McQueen, I'm sure all the raccoons and everything else are like giving him space with a name like that.
He's a tough cat.
Yeah, he really is. He's really streetwise, as much as you can be in the suburbs. And
He has a very different look. If you look at the episode, he has a very different look for a cat than Yogi does.
yeah,
It's interesting. Different model.
Yogi looks much bigger. I don't know if he really is under all that fur because we don't know where the skin starts. We haven't found it yet.
He's just all fur and that's it.
He's so, he's got like 3 layers of fur, especially on the underbelly, because that's how they make them to work in the snow. That's in Maine. I must say, when Southern California gets over 100, the Maine Coon isn't real happy here. But we do have air conditioning, so he'll have to live with it.
Do you even get winter there? Because aren't they winter centric cats, Maine Coons?
We don't get snow or anything like that. We get cooler weather. It'll drop into the
30s
at night. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have this last winter in particular with all the rain and stuff. He was in heaven.
There really is a winter here. It's just not as severe as the East Coast.
Yeah.
I love you guys are complaining about 30s at night. That's cute.
Right.
I know, it's balmy.
That's cute in January. It's like 1.
Yeah, 1. -6.
Like my parents in Florida. It was in the 40s today. There was panic in the streets.
Right?
Right. Well, yeah, Florida's too hot and humid, though. It's much nicer out here.
Yeah, absolutely.
My humble opinion.
But listen, we're recording in early August. I'm going to have this on in late August. I'm going to be showing every episode of the Yogi Show that I could find on the channel.
Excellent.
I just think it's awesome that you found such an amazing cat with that oozes personality, that each of your cats have lived such long, happy, full lives.
Yes.
I just think that's great. I think it's great that you can provide him with such a property that he could run around. And I love that what you've done in films you could do now with a phone in your kitchen and make such amazing videos of Yogi. So everybody needs to go follow the Yogi Show on YouTube because it's just great stuff. The voiceovers are hysterical.
Thank you.
You have a great voiceover. The voiceovers are awesome. I cannot listen to my own voice, so I don't listen to my episodes very much. But it's all about the cats. It's not about me. But I could talk to you guys for hours, but thank you so much for telling me the story of everything that led to Yogi. Long may Yogi live. We'll have Yogi on again.
Thank you.
And that's season 2. I'm trying to figure out how to do video, so maybe we'll have a video of Yogi on a future episode.
Sure. Let me know if you need some help with that. I'd be happy to help.
I will. Thank you so much, both of you, for taking the time. This has been amazing.
Okay, Dan, and thanks for doing Shelter Cats. It's a good thing.
Absolutely. And say hi to Yogi. And what was the name of the supermarket that you get his
Gelson's.
Gelson's.
L-S-O-N-S. Yeah, you can look it up.
Gelson's. Don't get any ideas, guys. There's none of that on the East Coast.
Don't even use that word.
They're looking at me like, fancy place? Does that mean fancy food? What?
Now, what is the gourmet place that starts with a Z in New York?
Zabar's, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, they like that.
I could walk to the Long Island Railroad. They were like, you can go into Manhattan.
Yeah.
You don't have a life. You can go get us some fancy stuff.
Well, yeah.
Make it snappy.
Yeah.
Stop recording podcasts and go get us stuff.
Yeah. That's it. Well, thanks again for having us on. This was fun.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I'll let you know when the next new Yogi episodes are up too.
Absolutely. We'll look forward to it.
All right. Be well.
Be well. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Dan the Catman back, and how awesome was that? I hate having to end segments ever because I could just keep talking and talking and talking and talking because they're just wonderful people who have a wonderful cat and it was just an awesome conversation. And that's really what I want on this show, is just talking to people who just love to talk about their cats. This is a shelter cat. This came from a PetSmart who had an adoption. And look at how the life that, just by having an amazing personality and stealing their hearts, and now look at the life he has. He gets to live on a huge property. He's making cat friends, and he helps them with his editing work, and he's just stolen their hearts. And just that's what it's about. It's a regular, everyday shelter cat, not from a foofy breeder. Just a regular, everyday shelter cat. Just makes such a difference in your life that you almost instantly, you cannot imagine your life without just that cat. Just a shelter cat makes such a difference. They're just amazing pets and amazing companions. I live alone. I've been single for a while already. I could not imagine my life without my shelter cats. My friends ask me all the time, you've been single for a while. Don't you want to go meet somebody? Aren't you lonely? You work from home. Aren't you lonely? No, I'm not. I see my friends, I'm social when I want to be. I don't want to be social that often because you're never alone when you have an amazing shelter cat in your life. That's my point. They make such amazing companions. They make such amazing pets. My Taylor meditates with me. He's the 13-year-old I saved from death row in animal control in Manhattan. And I meditate twice a day. He meditates with me. He knows when I'm going to meditate. He knows the meditation music, the voices. He lays on his back right next to me. And he just goes into like a zen on his back. And when I'm done, he goes about his business. This is a cat that was on death row in March, just a few months ago. And now he meditates with me twice a day. And he's just an amazing cat. You could have that too. So go adopt. Don't shop. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll see you in the next episode.